Hey everyone, if you haven't noticed, texting and driving out there, it's pretty bad, right? Everywhere you go, you see people doing it. I see it all the time. You're driving, you got oncoming traffic. You see every like second or third person looking at their phone, looking at their phone. So, what happens if you get caught in Florida? Like, what can go down for you? And that's why I brought. Don't use the word bought. I brought my good buddy Leland Garvin. Leland, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing good, Tim. How are you?
I'm doing good, buddy. Doing good.
Good.
So, Leland, I brought you on because this topic was kind of on my mind the other day, and you and I see each other every Thursday at our networking meeting, right? And I just wanted to kind of pick your brain and learn a little bit about this, the texting and driving, and kind of the penalties and what goes into it. So, you, sir, can you just let everyone know what you do for a living and why I chose you to talk to about this?
Yeah, I can do that. So thank you for the introduction, Tim. And it is good to see you virtually today, not at our breakfast. But yeah, my name's Leland Garvin. I'm a personal injury lawyer here in Fort Myers. And I work at Garvin Injury Law, where we handle injury cases, as you might imagine from the name. Prior to that, I was a state prosecutor. I worked doing criminal defense. And so I definitely have some experience around the texting and driving, or certainly everything from car crash to the criminal defense end of DUI, even handled a couple vehicular homicide cases that related to texting and driving. So I'm able to talk to you about that for sure.
Well, good. I knew you could. You're a good dude too, so that's a plus. So what I kind of opened up the intro talking about, like, it's almost become a hobby of mine, Leland, where like I'm driving, especially in like, two-lane traffic, right? Like I look over a lot, to see whose head's down, who's not, it's like it literally is like every third or fourth person. It feels like head down typing while they're going 50 miles an hour, down the road. And so I know you kind of see the same thing, and there's actually a lot of data behind, being a distracted driver, right? Would you like to talk about that for a second?
Yeah, for sure. And we see it a lot these days where someone's been in a crash and they'll come in and tell me, hey, this guy hit me. I was looking back. I saw my mirror just before the impact and he was on his phone or she was on her phone. Sometimes it's caught in the crash report. But what we know, the reason why crashes occur after texting and driving is that you've got to take your eyes off the road. And I saw some study that was talking about you take your eyes off the road, the amount of time it takes to type a short word, and you've traveled a couple football field lengths if you're going 50 or so miles an hour. But there's been multiple peer review studies. I saw one from the New England Journal of Medicine, and then the University of Utah did this big thing that said just talking on the phone distracts you or impairs you to the point that you're pretty much equal to somebody being right at 0.08, which, Florida is a legal level impairment. And that's just talking on the phone. That's not having to think about a text, looking down, eyes off the road. So, just diverting that attention. And that's what, when they do roadside exercises for drunk or impaired people, it's those divided attention tasks that they're trying to get you to do that's harder when you're impaired or intoxicated. And so just dividing your attention that way, eyes off the road, it's a real problem. And this doesn't even talk about the computers now in the car, your nav, your screen, who's calling, Bluetooth, or other devices that maybe your kids have in the car.
I would say, God help you if you have kids in the car with you too. That's a distraction enough.
Yeah, the old-fashioned distraction. That's
definitely. Well, so like, with that, with the texting and driving, so like, there's a couple of things I'm always curious with. Is one, I kind of understand, like, if you got into a wreck or some kind of accident, if texting and driving is one thing, but I will talk about it in a second. Can a cop, like, visibly, like, can you just get pulled over for texting and driving with no accident happening?
You can, and that didn't used to always be the case, but this is something that Governor DeSantis had signed into law since he's been the governor, and they called it the Florida Ban While Texting on Driving Law, which may be a bit redundant or excessive. But there is, you now can be pulled over for, as they say, manually typing or entering multiple letters, numbers, or symbols on a wireless communication device, and then it says commonly known as texting, emailing, instant messaging. So you can, just within the past few years, be pulled over for that as a primary offense. For many years they had it and it was not allowed, but it had to be a secondary offense, where you had to be speeding, not using your turn signal, doing something else in addition to this. And on a personal note, I was coming back from court in Ocala, well, actually in Lakeland, and I got pulled over, and I may or may not have been on my phone, and I may or may not have been exceeding the speed limit. And the officer, real slyly at that time under the old law, asked me if, oh, counselor, he could tell I had my tie on. I think he could see from my driver's license information that I was prior law enforcement. But so, oh, counselor, were you happen to finishing up an old text or an email there? Yeah. Oh, no, I was not, officer. I was looking at my navigation. But so that would have been the example of it being a secondary offense after a speeding ticket that, I may or may not have gotten. But nowadays you can be pulled over just for texting, or, whatever the law says there that we just talked about.
But they have to visibly see you and pull you over for it. And what, you just get a ticket for that?
Yeah, you can just get a ticket for that, and it lays out what the penalties are. But that's like the tip of the iceberg for this texting and driving stuff as far as penalties go. So I told you I was a prosecutor. I also did criminal defense prior to just now doing only injury work. But I had a client, this was out towards LaBelle. They were driving, texting, crossed over the center line and killed a young lady. It was a pretty tough case. Just tough in terms of the loss that was involved, this young woman who had been killed. So in this case, and actually it's Jonathan Martin, I remember, who was the prosecutor, who I think locally is going to likely be our next senator here. But at any rate, this kid, my client, was texting while he was driving, and he was going over the speed limit. This person died as a result of him crossing over the center line. He was charged with vehicular manslaughter for that. And the basis of it was that he was going over the speed limit and he was on his phone. They got data from the car showing the speed, the lack of touching the brakes, and then it was his testimony that he was fishing for the phone that had fallen between the cracks. So, with that, I think if it was just the speeding and not the texting, or looking for his phone, he would have been talking about a $500 fine, and possibly losing his license, even though there was a death. But now he's looking at 15 years in prison because of that in the criminal sense, right? So that's in the criminal world that, kind of results based. If really bad harm happens, injure on your phone or texting, that conduct can be considered reckless. But in the civil world, if you hurt somebody or you rear end them and they got whiplash, and next thing you know, they've called a TV lawyer and they're in a big neck brace or whatever, you name it. All types of things can happen in that regard that I'm happy to discuss if you want.
Well, it is pretty interesting, and like, you and I are talking about the criminal side of things, or the civil, right? Like, that the example you gave, and, remove that part of it and just the safety, not only did like that life get taken, but also, your client could have died too, just as, and you don't want to cheapen any of this, but like, it's like, man, you could really you're going to hurt somebody, like out there in some of these accidents. So you can, and the other part of this, so is why I thought it'd be interesting is, I got a kid, he's 15, he's going to be 16, next year, and texting and driving, that's got to be a major concern for a lot of parents out there, that are having kids 16, 17, 18 years old that are starting to drive, because I see it with grown adults that do it all the time. I can't imagine what high schoolers are doing while they drive. And so I don't know, it kind of is on my heart to put stuff like this out, because you don't want these kids you don't want them getting in trouble. You don't want them killing themselves or anyone else, right? So you gotta be careful with that. I do have a couple more questions though. So
yeah, that's a good point, Tim, as it relates to that. As humans, we're pushed to be super efficient these days. And so, well, let me just send this one text. It's just one little text. Let me shoot something off for this email, or for kids that, the social pressure of, oh, I gotta like or TikTok, something real quick. It'll only take a second. Well, it's that second, and look, life is over. Or, which we can talk about a little later, is the financial penalty if it's a civil situation. But go
Well,
ahead.
yeah, I definitely want to get into the penalties of it, because that's one of the questions I had down. The other question was, like, is it so the just here, it's me, I'm driving, I rear end somebody, they get whiplash. Like, how do they, man, I gotta be careful, I guess, asking this question. I don't want to come off like I'm looking for a way to get around something, but like, how do they know I was on my phone? If, like, is that like, is it a tech thing where they grab your phone and they can run a search, somehow they know? Or is it like my word versus somebody else's? Or does there have to be a witness there to see you? How do they know that you were on your phone?
Well, that's a great question. And, I think, I know this might be broadcast or hosted on your site, but otherwise, if you were talking to a lawyer, your questions or concerns would be confidential. So you'd be able to ask those. But I know your fans may want to know, folks may want to know the answer to that. And so, one, an officer could see you, a witness could see you on your phone. Next would be an admission. So oftentimes that's used, well, we saw you, just go ahead and admit. It's going to make it easier. You admit. Another way, what we've done in the past is we'll subpoena the records, during a deposition, for example. We'll get your carrier, who your wireless carrier is, what your phone number is. We can get your data. That tells us a limited amount of information. If you really want to go into it, though, you'd need to probably file a lawsuit quickly, or somehow get your hands on the other driver's phone, get it out to an expert, to take a look at what they call ESI, but electronically stored info, to show what the phone was doing. Because with the carriers, let's say I send a subpoena to AT&T or Verizon, they're likely only going to show that data was pushed or received at that time. But that gets me closer, to where I would be trying to get, if I'm representing the person that, that Tim rear ends. I mean, I wouldn't, not if it's you, Tim, I wouldn't mess with the case. But, if someone was on their phone, we
Would
would
you not represent me if that happened?
No, I'm saying I wouldn't sue you if you were the driver who's doing the rear ending.
Okay.
Yeah,
Come on, man. I may need you one day.
of course.
Hey, so, but if, let's do two different roles here, just real quick. This is fun. This turned into fun for me. If you have, so like, if it's me, and let's just say I know I hit somebody and I know I was on my phone, what I need to do would be the old advice of shut up and get your lawyer. Would you?
Right.
Is that sound right?
Yeah, I think so. So the first thing, if you look at your insurance card, right, because all of a sudden you're going to be checking your insurance policy limits. You'll be calling Connie or someone to say, hey, am I insured for this? But the first thing you'd want to do is let your insurance carrier know, right? Because you have a duty within your contract for insurance coverage to let them know that a crash has occurred. And then once you get with someone, through your insurance company, you may want to make that known. You most certainly don't want to destroy evidence, toss the phone in the river, something like that, because the penalty in that regard could be even worse. That you could have an inference drawn against you, that this stuff just disappeared, and that's happened. We're thinking, oh, we just, I don't know, and oftentimes the penalties can be worse in that regard.
I bet
it disappears.
Okay, so then, all right, so there's that.
So you let your carrier know. If you had a lawyer, we'd look at your policy, see how bad was the harm. Was somebody dead? Was it whiplash? What are we talking about? Are you covered? Do you need an attorney to represent you personally, in addition to an attorney that the insurance carrier might provide? And then we could talk about how this would go, once we got into that situation.
Gotcha. So, okay, let's go to the other side. I'm at a red light, hanging out, and I look at my rearview mirror, I see someone coming in hot, and I notice on their phone as they, plow into the back end of my pickup truck. So what should I do in that situation if I'm the one that got hit? And I mean, I guess I noticed them on their phones, one thing, but what if I didn't notice them on their phone, or didn't even see it happen? Maybe a little bit of guidance on if I'm in one of those two situations too.
Yeah. Well, I think the first thing would be medical care, right? Because oftentimes we're in shock after a crash, and you're more concerned with, the things around you, property damage, where are your kids going to get picked up from school? You've got adrenaline flowing. And so what you probably want to do is get checked out medically if you think there's even a shot that something, could be going on, right? To make sure that there's nothing real bad, that would cause you not to make it through the night. But even after that, just to have your medical situation documented, because what we're talking about, and what I would tell you for the next phase is maybe we need to get those, experts to get that person's phone. Maybe we need to file a lawsuit very soon, send what I'd call a spoliation letter to them or their insurance company, telling them, we want that phone, we want that stuff, do not touch it, don't delete it, we're putting you on notice of that. But in order to really dig deep in there, we'd want to make sure that you're hurt, right? If you're not hurt and it's just a little thing that might resolve, it might not be worth it to spend the money hunting all this stuff down if you're like, yeah, it kind of went away. So I think it really goes to how hurt are you? And we always want that early documentation, because the insurance company's defenses to if Tim's hurt in a situation is, look, it didn't happen in this crash. If it did, it resolved. It was just the aging process, and he's just wanting to win the lawsuit lottery. That's their defense, which sometimes works. So we need to document early on that, you had symptoms, for example.
Gotcha. So medical care, and then from there, try to you have to plan it out if it need to go further.
Yeah. And then you talk to somebody like myself, and we could decide hey, Tim's pretty, he's hurt. We got to go get this stuff. So it makes sense to, spend the $500 to file the pleadings, hire the experts, immediately seize the phone, that kind of thing.
Gotcha. So let's get into what are some of the penalties that can happen when you get caught doing this?
Well, you've got, just this ticket, that would be the cost of the ticket, right? We've talked about if it's criminal and it's reckless driving, versus a careless driving, which could be 15 years in prison, if someone was killed, God forbid. But if you get down to a regular case in a civil world where the penalty is money, that's the only option in a civil court. There's a few things. First is that you would be able to argue to a jury that if someone violated a statute, that's evidence of negligence. So the judge would tell the jury, hey, if you find that they were violating this texting while driving ban, you can consider that, the jury can consider that in your case against the person who hits you. That's kind of one little part. As to the texting itself, if you can get that in front of a jury, it's the type of things that could upset them, right? And have them, wait, this guy was texting, he wasn't even looking where he's going, that could have been me. And they're wanting to help you, recover financially and medically and you name it. The level maybe way up above that is something called punitive damages, which courts have allowed. There's been a few cases here in Lee County, Collier, other places where the person who caused the crash can be forced to pay punitive damages to punish them, not just compensate you, but punish them for texting and driving, usually combined with some other factors, if it's speeding and a few other things there. But that can mean that, a jury is told, give them money just to deter this type of conduct. And most of that is not covered by insurance. And it also isn't dischargeable in bankruptcy. So you could have this judgment sitting against you, and Tim was only hurt a little bit, but this person got a whopper of a verdict against them that stuck with them for life for punitive damages.
Jeez, gotcha, dude.
And then you brought up kids, which was interesting. If your kids are driving, that's definitely a situation where you want to make sure you're insured and covered. Because if you're the vehicle owner or you've signed your, 16-year-old's driver's license paperwork, you could be on the hook for this, where they're going after mom and dad for this.
Right.
So
yeah, I have to disown my kid quick. Just dude, good information, man. Do you have anything else you want to add?
Not really. It's definitely the type of thing that it's, I think I saw your Facebook post that you may have texted and drove once.
The joke. Yeah.
There could have been a time I had sent a text, possibly, when I shouldn't have been. But sometimes it's that, but for the grace of God go I. But it is so dangerous with all the technology that we've gotten, just looking down. And You take your eyes off the road and all of a sudden you're a upstanding, the most reputable mortgage broker in our area, and you sent an email because you're on top of it with your clients and they need to hear from you, and you want to get this deal done. And next thing you know, boom, you're facing this massive problem. And so,
listen, dude, I mean, anyone watching this, like, you're an adult, you're driving, like, especially if you're in business or something, you've looked at your phone. I mean, like, we've all done it, so it's just something that everyone needs to be aware of. And just, me too.
Well, these things suck us in too. You've seen like that Social Network documentary where, God forbid you get on some kind of social media and it's going to get you scrolling. And next thing you know, you're miles from where you started.
Yeah. Listen, they're all in the attention business, and their job is to keep your attention onto that platform.
Right, yeah, not where it needs to be.
Yeah, you need to be in the pay attention business. So, hey, dude, how can they get in touch with you if they want, more of, because you do more than just this? I mean, listen, shout out to Leland. I know him for years now. We're in a networking group together. Every week, this guy brings some kind of great information to our group. He's a great guy. He's very honest. He'll be a huge help to you and whatever problem you have going on that he can help with. I 100% am confident in referring Leland. And so, Leland, if they need you, how do they get in touch with you, buddy?
Well, first of all, I really do appreciate that, Tim.
Yeah, I meant it.
As far as me, I mean, I'm talking to you now. Our office is right across from the Edison Mall here on 41. Garvin Injury Law is the name of it. We've got a website, garvinlegal.com. Phone number is 239-277-0005. You can shoot me an email, lgarvin@garvinlegal, but I'm definitely, I'd like to think I'm approachable and we can talk this. I'm not going to judge you to, oh my gosh, you did what? Because my job, I had put on my business card, attorney and counselor at law, because I do think that oftentimes I'm counseling people, more than I am attorneying or, the other stuff. So I'd love to hear from anyone that has questions, and I'm waiting for the call.
Cool, man. You're a great guy. He'll help you out a lot. Hey, speaking of other things, I do mortgages for a living. So if you're looking to buy a home in Florida, I'm actually licensed in a bunch of different states. I'm going to talk about Florida right now. If you're looking to buy a home in Florida, look me up. I'd be happy to help. We got a lot of different programs: refinance, cash out refinance, pay off debt with using your home. Happy to help. That my office number is 239-437-4278. Website's timhartjr.com. Reach out anytime. We're happy to help. Always here to serve. Leland, thank you, man, for being with us. Appreciate it, man.
Very good. Thank you, Tim. And yeah, anyone calling you would definitely be in good hands. I mean, I've seen you, consistently for the last few years showing up with not only lists of referrals, people that you're sending out, but people in our group has sent to you that they've been happy with it. I know you do that, thing where you keep everyone in the loop.
Tuesdays with Tim, man.
Tuesdays with Tim. Yeah, you're on it.
What a love fest. All right, you guys. Thanks for saying that, Leland. I appreciate it. Hey, everyone. Have a great day. Take care. Thanks, Leland.
All right. Thank you, Tim.
All right, buddy.
Bye.